Well, Happy New Year and welcome back, Royal High School Woodshop. Good to see you all. I hope you had a great Christmas and New Year's and that you're ready to get back to school. I'm back here in the lab, the wood lab, working on creating the first project that we're going to be working on starting right here this week. So let's go back up to the front of the classroom and where we're out of all this sawdust and noise, and I will take a minute to walk you through the first project that we're going to build and show you how it's done. Hey, it's Mr. Sorensen, and today I would like to introduce you as we start out this new semester to the new project that we're going to just begin with, which kind of looks back a little bit and looks forward a little bit. I'm going to introduce that to you. Notice I'm not in the class. We're going to get started and you're going to be able to work on building it even though I'm not present in the classroom right at the moment. Well, as you can see here in front of me, the project that we're going to be working on here at the beginning of the semester is a decoration of sorts, a tree. This is actually a conifer tree. We talked a little bit about that at the end of last semester. Conifers are pine trees, fir trees, spruce trees, redwood trees, trees that have cones. In fact, many of you might have had a tree just like this in your house over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Now, what you see here to my right is the project we're going to build. We're going to be building this little Christmas tree. And the Christmas tree project, very cool project. People that I've talked to love it as a Christmas decoration, but hidden amongst the project is actually a measuring quiz. So if you know how to measure, this will go pretty smoothly and it'll look like that. If you are struggling with measuring, it's harder because you need all of the pieces cut at the right size for it to look just like this tree that you see here. We're also going to introduce a different style of putting finish on a project with this. If you look at this Christmas tree, you'll notice that it sort of looks weathered and old, almost antique. And that's a finishing technique called distressed finishing. Now, last semester we put finish on our projects. They looked brand new, very nice, neat, and brand new. This is a different way to finish projects. You can go to the store and you can find furniture, tables, cabinets. They're brand new, and yet they look like they're 50 years old and the paint has been worn off. That's a specific finishing technique called distressed. So we're going to look at that as we build this project. Now, as we start, the one major thing that I need to point out is that you're going to build this project along with a video that you're going to find in your Google Classroom. That video was made last year, when we were doing woodworking at home in people's bedrooms. And so in that video, I'll refer to a kit quite often. Now, the thing we need to note is that you are not working with a kit here this semester. Some of the parts will be put together like you might see in the kit, but you just need to remember, right? Last year in the kit, you had 10-inch pieces of wood, nice and neat and in a little bag. That's not what you're going to work with this time. You're going to have a piece that looks like this. You had a tree, the trunk of the tree was already pre-cut, ready for you to use. That's not pre-cut this time. You're going to need to cut it out of a piece of material. So the main thing as we start introducing this project is just for you to know that as you begin working with the building the tree video that's going to walk you through the steps of building the tree, please note that this project in class is not neatly bagged up in a kit like is referred to in the video. And I'm going to show you in the course of this introduction video where you're going to find all the different pieces right now here today in class. To start with, let's look at the material you're going to use. You're going to use a piece of material about like this. It's around 88 or 89 inches long. There'll be some extra, so if you run out for some reason, you could always come back and get a little more. But that's the length that your material is going to be in. Now, we need to remember back to last semester as we got started, we've talked about safety. One of the things about safety is that I need to be careful. We should be wearing glasses when we do this, right? So as we go to work on it, we're going to put our glasses on because if this piece of wood is being carried around and worked with, it could easily end up in somebody's eye. So we want to be careful with it. You're going to be using a long piece of wood like that. And you're going to also end up with a piece of 1.5 inch, about 7/8 in diameter dowel, or what you're gonna cut it out of is a broom handle, old broom handle that's no longer used. So that's another piece of material that you're gonna use. That's all the wood that's necessary to build the project. The other thing that you're gonna get is a little piece of metal, it's actually hanger that's been bent and straightened to look like this, a really tall L. Right down the center of the tree is this really tall L, and it holds all these pieces together and keeps them centered as they glue together. Now, the tools that are needed to do this are a miter gauge or a miter box, and you've used the big miter boxes in here to cut your sanding block. This is a personalized miter box that just hooks to the side of the table like that, and I'm going to hold it tightly while I use this. This is my back saw, or my miter box saw, right? It's made to work in this little miter box. This is a drill, believe it or not, right? Inside here under the cap is a 3/32 drill bit. And if I place that on top of my piece of wood right where I need the hole, and I just turn it a few times, this will drill right through my material. So those are primarily the tools that we're going to use, and they can all be used by individuals at their workstation or their table. All of us can be working at the same time and get all of this accomplished. So those are the tools you're going to need, along with your pencil and a ruler. So probably rulers are going to work better than the tape measure, although the tape measure could work, right? If I laid the tape measure out in front of me and locked it open, I could stick the board up there against it and do my measuring. So that's fine. We have wood rulers up at the front of the room that you can use, the metal rulers in the closet, or a tape measure. Okay, so that's another tool that you will need to use. I will have gone through or tried to have gone through and put together this, which is a baggie that has basically the Christmas decorations in it. What you should find in here is a star and I think 15 white beads and 15 red beads. And you can see how they are used to decorate the Christmas tree, so that it's kind of like it's got the little different colored Christmas balls on it. All right, the last thing that you're going to be working with is up in the front of the room, there's a piece of paper like this, and it says, build a Christmas tree, measuring practice. Because really, kind of subtly underneath the building of this is really just measuring practice. It's kind of like a test. If your tree looks like this, then you've got it correct. If your tree doesn't look like this, then you didn't measure correctly. So on this piece of paper right here is a checklist of all the pieces that you have to cut to make this work. So it starts at the top at 5 3/4, 5 1/2, 5 1/4, 5, 4 3/4, 4 1/2, 4 1/4, 4, right? And it works its way down. The smallest little pieces that you end up cutting are 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch. And again, I would follow the video that will be in your Google Classroom so that you do this in a way that makes sense. In that video, I'm going to explain to you how to cut these out and the order I would cut them out, because 1/2 inch pieces, little tiny pieces like that, are hard to work with. So we actually do a lot of work with the piece that's like this, and then we cut the little 1/2 inch pieces out of it. So you're going to need this piece of paper as well. All of that's available either up at the front of the classroom or back at the table saw. Well, let me go take you around the classroom and just show you where you're going to find the different parts that you're going to need to build the Christmas tree. Well, to start with, I'm right here at the table saw, as you can see, and there's a couple items that you'll find here that you're going to want to work with. First one are these big, what look like broom handles. That's exactly what they are. They're about 7/8 inch dowel. And you're going to want to mark 1.5 inches length on there and take it to the chop saw back here to cut. I'll show you that process a little bit later. But the dowel, you need a 1.5 inch piece. In the video for making the Christmas tree, it's going to show that already pre-made and in your kit. You're going to need to cut that, okay? Secondly, I have here 2 stacks, one here, one here. They're really the same thing. This was made out of a little bit shorter board, so I taped a second piece to it to make sure you had enough material. Each student will need 1 long strip of this pine, and out of that you're going to make your Christmas tree. Once this stack is used up, you can take a piece from this stack over here. They're all exactly the same, right? So the reason this has something taped to it is because this board that I cut it out of was a little bit shorter. All right, so that's the material that you're going to use, and here's where you find it, at the table saw. Now we need to look at where do we get the tools that we're going to use to build the Christmas tree, as well as the other components that go into it. So for that, we're going to need to head up to the front of the classroom. Right, so here we are at the front of the classroom, and here's where you're going to find some of your other parts. If you look right down here at the countertop in the front of the classroom, this is where you're going to find some of the other things you need. Let me show you what they are. We're going to start right here in this little box. In the little box, I'm going to find a bag, and this has the white beads and the red beads, and it will have stars. Those bags will have stars in it. If you don't have enough of those, there should be 15 of each color, and if there's not enough, I'll have some additional ones that you can pick up at a later date, as well as the star. I'll have some extra stars for you to use as well. Also in this box, you will find the metal hanger, right? That metal L-shaped piece that you build your Christmas tree around. Right here in the middle is the plan of procedure, or the cutting list, really. It's just a long list. It does give you a little bit of instruction. The plan of procedure in this particular project is really going to be the video, which will walk you through the entire thing. So you'll need to pick up, each student will need one of these. And then in this big box right here, what I find here is a miter box, a drill, and a miter saw, right? So the tools, the 3 tools that are needed besides the ruler, the 3 tools that are needed to make the project. Now, some of the miter boxes are yellow, some are not painted yet. Some of the drills are orange, some are not painted yet, and some of the saws are green and some are not painted yet. Doesn't matter what their color is, they will all work exactly the same. Now, one last thing that you might want to borrow is right up here in the front is the wooden rulers. So if there's not enough rulers and you need one and you would like to use a ruler rather than a tape measure, right up here in the front is where the wooden rulers are. Well, that shows us where all the supplies are that we're going to need to build our Christmas tree project. Now, don't forget, just like in the past semester, when you start to build a project, up here in the front, you're going to find some bags. You may already have a bag in our big plastic box from our period. All the parts and pieces that you are going to work with your project need to go in one of these bags with your name on it. That bag will go inside one of the big plastic totes, and that will get locked up in our cupboard. All of the tools that you work with need to come right back up here to the front and go in back into this paper box so that the next class period can use the tools to build their project. Well, there's a couple more things that we need to look at that are different in this current setting where we're going to build this Christmas tree from the video. So let me show you a couple of more of those items. First of all, the painting we're going to do here in class, and when we get to that point, right up here in the front cabinet is where you will find the paints. So there's two bags here. In the bags there's a cup and a lid, and there'll be a couple of different colors of green paint and some brown paint for the trunk. I'm simply going to put a little bit of the green paint in the container. I'll put the lid on it. I'll take it with some paper back to my desk. I'll paint the pieces, and then whatever is not used, I will put the lid back on it, bring it back up here, and set that up here for somebody else in another class period to use. Up here as well are some paint brushes that I can use to paint the pieces as well. One note when we work with the paint is that you always want to make sure that, obviously, first of all, we're very careful so we don't make a mess. And secondly, you never want to work with the pieces while the paint is still wet. So after we get done painting and putting all our stuff away, we have to set that tree parts aside and let them fully dry before we're able to move on. In particular, because we're going to try to do this distressed look. So painting, the paint supplies is up here at the front, and the video will tell us when that happens. The painting needs to happen while all the tree parts are separated. You don't paint the tree after it's all been glued together. You actually paint it when all the pieces are separate, and then you glue the green pieces all together into the final tree. All right, now let's go back and look at the trunk and how we work with the trunk, because in the video it already comes pre-made and pre-drilled, and you're going to need to do that here in our classroom. All right, so to cut the tree trunk out of the 7/8 inch dowel, we're going to get that piece of dowel from the table saw. We're going to bring it back here to the chop saw, and I'm going to start by making my mark on there with my ruler. I want to cut a piece that's about 1.5 inches. Now, you might say, hey, Mr. Sorensen, the piece of dowel, the broom handle looks kind of beat up. It's got some paint on it. All of that is great because we're trying to create a antique looking tree that has distress marks on it. Distress marks means it's beat up. So no matter how the dowel or the broom handle looks, it won't matter, even if it has red paint, because we're going to paint over it. We're going to sand through that paint, and it actually looks really cool to have different colors showing through the paint. So don't worry about the piece of material and what it looks like. Second of all, once the broom handle or the dowel gets small enough that it fits on completely onto the V-block, which is what we're going to cut this with, then we need to go to another piece of dowel. If you have to cut a piece and all we have is short little pieces that fit on here, I need to help you with that cut. So just make note of that. Once the piece of dowel is small enough that it fits just onto the V-block, try to get a different piece of dowel. And then if there's nothing, all of them are too small, you're going to need to get me involved in helping you cut it. So because dowel is round, and when you put teeth into it, it can start to spin, we're going to use a V-block to cut this. We're going to set the dowel in a V-block. You can see that right down the middle of this piece of wood is a V. We set our dowel down in there, and that helps keep it from spinning. So I'm going to set it up here against the fence. I'm going to turn my dowel so I can see the pencil mark, and I want the blade to cut as close to the V-block as I can get it without actually touching it. And I want my pencil mark to be right up next to that blade. Now, this is another good instance where I want to make the cut and then hold the blade down until it stops spinning, because I've got this little round piece of wood sitting down there, and if it touches the spinning blade, it could launch it out into my face. So I'm just going to hold it till it stops. And as long as it's close to that 1.5 inches, we're okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be something like that, about 1.5 inches, so it makes a great sized tree trunk. I'm going to put all of this material back on the table saw for the next person, and then we will go and I'll show you. We need to drill the hole in that piece of wood. All right, well, in the video, this tree trunk is already pre-cut and there's already a hole in it, but we're not going to do that here in the classroom. You're going to cut this at the chop saw, and then you need to come over to the drill press and drill a hole in it. Now, part of it is set up for you, and that is the setup on the drill press, the fixture that's going to hold this while you drill the hole. So I've put a drill bit in here. It's about an 1/8 inch drill bit. It's a little bit bigger than the holes you're drilling in the rest of the wood, but I'm doing that because I don't really want the blade, the drill bit, to break. The smaller drill bit would have a tendency to break, and so this will keep that from happening, hopefully, and you're never going to see it, so it won't matter that the hole is a little bit bigger on the tree trunk. This is all set up. All I'm going to do is set the tree trunk in there, and there is a toggle clamp, kind of like we used for making our Craftsman box, where I grab the handle and I snap it, and when it snaps in, it's got that piece of wood gripped and it won't let go. The rest of it is all clamped down. I've already gone ahead and got it close to the center, so I don't need to mess with any of that. All I need to do at this point now is to turn the drill on and drill the hole. Now, this is a pretty tall 1.5 inches. That's pretty tall. That's a deep hole to be cutting. So I'm going to drill in, and then I'm going to back out several times to try to make sure I don't create too much heat and potentially break or dull the drill bit. All right, well, I think that did it. Let me wait for it to stop spinning. There it is. I got the hole in there, so now I've got the tree trunk in the condition that the video is wanting me to have it in, so I can move on now to putting my tree together. Well, my hope is that after a couple of days and working and using our measuring practice, we will have a Christmas tree that looks like this. This is a chance for us to put to practice what we learned last semester. Basically, the use of tools, the use of measuring, and the use of dividing a measurement in half so that we can find the center where we need to drill a hole. And at the end, we end up with a really cool looking Christmas decoration that looks like this. I've had lots of really positive feedback from not only students but also parents who really loved this particular project and loved getting it because then they could add it to the Christmas decorations they put around their house. So I hope you enjoy this process and this project. Good luck on your project, and I look forward to seeing a bunch of really cool looking trees in about 2 or 3 days.